We're going to go meet with Jonathan Erber with Erber Auto for another Forged in Idaho podcast. He does all our fleet maintenance as far as the mechanicking. He'll be a good guy to talk to as far as blue collar work, getting things done in an industry as an entrepreneur with just salt of the earth blue collar guys that work for him. Very similar industry. So it'll be fun to kind of riff on the similarities and then the differences that we can learn from each other. Forged in Idaho, here with Jonathan Erber, and you're my fleet maintenance guy. I don't know if you knew that. You probably knew that. You see my stuff.
I see them come through.
Yep, you're the guy. So, yeah, you've kind of had a similar story. We're similar ages.
Yeah.
Our wives hung out a little bit, and here we are doing good work in Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah.
Blue collar guy. Love to talk to you. So
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How did you get into this? How did you become a mechanic?
Well, it started early. There are videos of me in diapers, like pulling on a ripcord on an engine. And so my mechanical interest has gone way back, and that's been always a big interest. I didn't know if that was going to be something I did as a career, but I also had strong entrepreneurial interest growing up, and so all of Robert Kiyosaki's stuff, I was just like rereading Rich Dad Poor Dad because it was so exciting to me. And I don't read, but I read Robert Kiyosaki. So anyway, that's always just been an interest that was there. And then life happened, and I ended up in different places and needed money and started working out of my garage. And next thing you know, 2 shops here in town closed down, and a couple young entrepreneurs came to me and said, "Hey, we want to start a shop. Would you run it?" And I was like, okay, but I didn't want to own it at that point because I was kind of tired of the struggle. Entrepreneurship is hard. And so I told them I'd run it for a year, and if things were working, then we could talk about maybe putting some skin in the game.
And how long ago was that?
That was 2017.
Nice.
Yeah, so
okay.
8 years.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. What's been probably the struggle that's been the biggest thing that has made you think, man, maybe I'm still not cut out for it?
Oh, yeah. I actually don't think I am.
Today's the day.
Yeah. But fortunately, I was dumb, and the entrepreneurs I was with were dumb, and we didn't know what we were getting into. And so whenever one of us wanted to throw in the towel, everyone else was like, no, this has potential. Let's go, And so I think if we could have gone back there and been 8 years wiser, we'd have thrown in the towel pretty quick. But fortunately we weren't. And so ignorance is bliss, literally sometimes.
Yeah, but let's lean into that. How often would you say that that's the story? I'd say almost all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's always you look at any successful guy and he was right about done.
Yeah.
When things got really good.
Yeah.
So I would presume looking around that things are getting pretty good.
Yeah, things are going well, and so that's great. But I think you're right. You're 100% right. The people that are successful have come this close to failing a ton of times. But I think actually each time you come close to failing and you're like in a down cycle or whatever's happening, you find out how much lower you can go. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize I could go that low, And I think that's just a life thing, where stress prepares you for the next stress, and that's how we grow. And so whenever something's not going right, it's just not going your way, and then you find out, oh, this is a different way the world works that I didn't know about before. And so I think, we've been this close to failing a bunch of times, but I don't really know what failing looks like all the way yet. Like the business hasn't failed. So maybe if it failed all the way, then I would know how close I was before. But I think that's just kind of how life is, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So you just struggle well, and that's the story.
True. It's true. There's so many ways we can go out of that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that you touched on is, success is built on a bunch of failures,
100%.
not so much a bunch of wins.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And so you look at anybody that has a great story to tell, they're not telling you about the successes.
Yeah.
It's always this moment where things got really bad that people are super interested in.
Yeah.
There was a guy, probably the most profound case I ever heard was a guy, excellent book, Perfectly Wounded.
Okay. I haven't read it.
And the redemption isn't necessarily there. He's not a Christian, but he was perfectly wounded his whole upbringing to become this guy that literally walked through a door, was shot, I think it was 27 times.
Holy cow.
And his upbringing led him to deal with that moment. And that just really forced me into my role as a business owner. And I know you can sympathize with this, is when you look around at these guys depending upon you, there's a willingness to just accept those wounds.
Yep.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
From
so
outside and
the,
from within. You've got the people outside who would love to criticize Erber Auto for a thing, right? Every entrepreneur makes mistakes. Every business owner has stories where things have gone wrong. You got to deal with that on the outside, and then you've got friction problems, people problems on the inside, and it all centers on you.
Yeah, I guess when you started talking about that, I was thinking, what are the ways that my quote unquote wounds of my life have prepared me for this? And I actually think like this is the biggest one, and I don't know what this is preparing me for.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel prepared for this. But I think that the challenges that you hit are basically the ways you didn't grow but needed to. And so I haven't read the book, so I don't know if this lines up at all with what he's saying, but I'll tell you what my perspective is. The challenges you hit are the things you needed to grow in, but you didn't. And had you, then they wouldn't be a challenge, right? And so for me, being kind of a middle child, people pleaser, kind of learning how to steer the piano lessons to go to your favor, and like I became very good at manipulating the situation around me to make my life work, and you get into business and that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And people either hate you because you're a nobody, or they hate you because they think you're doing it wrong, or they hate you because you're successful. But pretty much people hate you, and it's loud. And the higher profile you get, the louder that gets. My mom always said, tall trees get struck by lightning, Jonathan.
Yep.
And so if you are a tall tree, if you're standing up and doing something and pushing any envelope, you're going to get hit with criticism. And most of the criticism you hear, you're like, that's based in your own world. There's no credibility to that. Occasionally, that's not the case, but for the most part, people are just talking from their experience. They have no realization of like how big and complex the world is. It's usually non-business owners, right?
Right.
So, or I should say the business world. So anyway, yeah, I think tall trees get struck by lightning, and you're going to get hit in all your weak spots. And that's one of the things that I like the most about business is that there are ways that I've grown in, business and marriage, right? Those are the two biggest things that have hit all my weak spots.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was coming from.
You see what God's up to.
Yeah.
You can see what he's doing.
Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from when I say I'm still not cut out for this.
Yeah.
Like it freaks me out every time, someone's not happy, or a bolt breaks and all of a sudden, oh no, we got to call the customer and cylinder head's got to come off, or whatever the case is. I don't know. Anytime that it's not pleasing somebody as a people pleaser, that it kills me, you know? And so as a business owner, my job is to serve people. And so in that sense, the people pleaser side of things is good, but it hurts.
Well,
It's continual pain.
That's awesome. Who better than you then, right?
Yeah, I guess.
That's the fact. I mean, and I could ask those guys, what they think about it. They're the 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 alliance that you have to please probably blesses them more than anyone else. And so that incentive of I'm going to bless my people and then I'm going to bless the customer as it pours out of that, right? That's a winning strategy, and it's great that we take ownership of things and feel like we're still not good enough.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk in terms of just doing the work. There's a whole bunch of young people who want to consider where they're going to go and whether they go and do a trade, right? Like be a mechanic, or should I go to college and pursue that route?
Yeah.
What would you say to them as far as the struggles that you've had to endure and the decision to just go into the fray versus go do some preparation?
Yeah. I think that before the preparation, people need to know who they are and what their gifts and abilities are. There's things you can't change, like I'm a man, I'm Italian and German descent, my last name's Erber, those type of things. Then there's things that pretty much life is about changing. Patience, fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, all that kind of stuff. You have to change in that. And then there's this set of things in the middle that God built you to have unique giftings in, like mechanical aptitude, pitch discrimination, rhythm, those kind of things. And you can develop those, but I think you're really given that set, and everybody's got a different set of gifts right in the middle that are not worth cutting against the grain. And so I think it's really important, if you're thinking about getting into the trades or any field, wherever you're going with your career, I think it's important to know, what am I good at? And usually you'll find that in what you like doing. And so if you're good at writing and you hate math, you probably shouldn't become an accountant, and to say, oh, that's the way I'm going to grow, I think is a waste of time and energy, because you have got a lifelong of growing in the fruits of the Spirit. Put your energy there. Don't think you're ever going to run out of time or run out of need to grow there. There's not enough time for that. So cut with the grain on the things of how did God make you? And if God made you to just hear a car rolling down the road and hear a rattle and know, that's cast aluminum with the chain slapping against it. If that's where your brain goes when you hear that rattle, then you probably should be thinking about a trade. Like maybe studying theology is not the way to spend the 4 years after high school. I mean, in a sense, we should all be studying theology. It's part of growing in our relationship with God. But maybe those gifts are to get out there and cut your hands and fix cars. I don't know. I haven't done enough construction to know what makes a good construction worker. Framer.
Pretty much the same thing as a mechanic.
Yeah.
A willingness to be uncomfortable and do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And do it well when you're tired.
Yeah. But if you're in English, like I've interviewed guys that are into poetry and stuff like that, I'm just like, man, you would hate this. And so when I'm under the hood and I'm uncomfortable, I'm still like eyes on the goal, and it's like a really rewarding battle, And then when it's done, I drag myself out from under a dash or whatever, and my back hurts. I was like, yeah, but watch this. And you turn it on. It's so satisfying.
Yes.
If you're into the arts in different ways and you do all that and you turn it on and it's not satisfying, it's not fun doing it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just really important to know, like, what are those abilities that God's given you? There are tools out there to find it, counselors, like people that have been around the business world for any amount of time can pretty much look at a high schooler and go, what are you doing? Or heck yeah, you're on the right road. Keep going,
Yep.
So I think that's probably the main thing I would say is don't roll the dice and pick whichever trade school popped up.
Yeah. And then let's talk like over the span of a life. you've married a very artsy person, right? So Allie certainly brought the music into your life. Were you
I was
musical
before. That's how we met, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
you've learned piano and you're bringing it back again, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So talk about the dichotomy there.
Yeah,
right? So
it's actually super closely related.
Yeah.
100% is. Your musical skills, pitch discrimination, rhythm, all that kind of stuff, if you don't have those, it's very difficult to be a mechanic because you're always listening and picking up sounds. And, I brought a car in because it was overheating the other day and then put it in reverse and I heard it. Oh, what was that? And then it was like, dang, this thing's got low oil pressure. Maybe we shouldn't think about doing a radiator right now. It needs an engine, If you're not tuned into those musical things, it affects you here too. So, yeah, art is one way you can go with those musical skills. I think the reason with the skill set that I have, music doesn't work, is there's a lot of other stuff that goes along with that is a very different skill set. Writing lesson plans, sitting down in isolation, just going through sheet music after sheet music, trying to plan a program or whatever the case is. That is not me because I need the social aspects and some of those kind of things. I'm not a planner. I am if it has to do with numbers in business. Yeah. So there is a dichotomy there, but it's actually not this big of a dichotomy as you would think. A lot of mechanic resumes have toured with this band. You would not believe the
Learned a thing today.
That. Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah. We right here, drums, 2 guitars, keyboard. Keyboard.
I see it now.
We have a garage band.
Yeah.
We just haven't started it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think there's that big of a dichotomy. The bigger thing with Allie is all her language skills. And I'm not a language person.
Yeah.
As you could probably tell.
But you can also, it's almost like being an athlete. You can see how being just a specialized athlete, you kind of peter out. You top end a little bit lower than the multi-sport athlete, right? If you're pushing those desires and skills into other spheres, you're bolstering from multiple angles your core skill set.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
I love the fact that I do firefighting and construction.
Yep.
I was told very early on, you want to be a good firefighter, understand fire behavior and how it interacts with building construction.
Yeah.
And so those two things just keep blessing each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, so I've had a dream to have a grand piano here for so long because why not, right? I like
no
music.
one else does.
And I guess I'm unique by accident, but on that front. But how cool to be able to take a lunch break and go play the piano, or whatever. And so now I've found after having the piano here, I come in, bring the rig around back, watch the sunrise. So I read my Bible, go in, play the piano, spend an hour or so playing. And I start the day just feeling great. Like good music is soul food, And so, that I think people are well rounded. You can't just say he's a mechanic and think you know him.
Right.
And it's what you said about needing to pursue those other areas and find what really feeds you as a person is important. To just be an entrepreneur is a failing quest, but to be a Christian that is an entrepreneur, all right, now we can go somewhere. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Okay. Family. Let's talk about families on mission. So you got a family, you got some kids.
Yeah.
Tell us about that family and then how it interacts with the work that you do.
Yeah. We've got 4 girls, 9, 6, 4, and 1.5, and they're a riot. It's a great time, but I can tell you what we do, or what we've looked at and what our mission has been. Obviously, there's a certain level of financial success that we wanted to have because there were certain gifts that we wanted to be able to give our girls. We'd like to be able to travel. I traveled a lot growing up, all on the East Coast, a lot of American history, and that's a gift we'd like to be able to give our kids. So that's one of the reasons that this shop is a thing is Business ownership gives the ability to have that income while you're traveling and do some of those things. And so we're starting to get to the point in the business where it's mature enough to do that. And early on, we decided there's a certain amount of grind that you need to put in starting a business, and long hours, and you know how that is. And we were not going to do that after our oldest was 8 or 9. We were going to push until then, and what we got was where we got. And so I'm actually right now in the spot where over the last years, I've always made sure to be home from dinner to bedtime and spend that time 100% focused on the girls. And there were times where afterwards, and it was back to work till 11:30. And we're at the point where that needs to pull back. I need to be there in the mornings. I need to be there more with them, especially as they come through into those teen years. And so it's very easy to allow business to eat yourself alive, but none of that really matters. Like ultimately, even in business, you look at, some deal that didn't go through that you're bummed about, or, oh man, am I going to be able to make payroll, or these deadlines on money I was lent, or whatever the case is. And it's easy to get stressed about those things until you remember you're not taking any of those with you. And they really mean nothing. It's good to steward them. I shouldn't say nothing, but in the eternal perspective, like me making a $5,000 payment on time is peanuts,
Yep.
And so where am I with the Lord? Where am I with my family is really the most important thing. And in no way 10, 20 years from now, if I'm sitting on millions of dollars in a beautiful estate and all that kind of stuff, and I'm seeing my daughter for the first time as she visits after getting married, I'll be like, dude, what did I do with my life? And so that, I think it's a constant struggle to keep yourself focused on not chasing the next carrot, and really limiting it to, I'm here from this time to this time, and during that time I'm all in, and then outside of that I am all out, and being 100% wherever you are, and really pouring into those kids. So I don't know. I feel like that's probably what anyone would say.
Yeah. Well, it's true.
It's a continual problem.
Yeah, it is. You're always facing the problem. And I'm always saying, to the Forged crew that we are joyfully building for the glory of God.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say that, it fixes everything, right?
Yeah.
It fixes, the relationship I have with my wife, that, hey, I need to go fix that so I can get back to work, right?
So. But it's easy when you miscut a stringer to get distracted from all that.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden
and run away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's concentric rings. God's at the center. Me and my wife are right outside of that, focusing on honing that relationship. Our kids are next. You got your work family, and then you got your customer. A lot of people put the customer first, right? And I think as Christians, we're very unique in the fact that the customer is not first.
Yeah.
It's not first. That each one of those pours outward into the next one.
Exactly. Even if you wanted the customer to be top priority and you could disconnect reality from a system, you would do it this way so that the customer gets the overflow.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's empty.
Right.
And you're just scrambling.
God's infinite, but we got a budget.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to budget. We do. So recognizing that really does bless every single one along the way to the maximum. And it is amazing how infinite that is.
Yep.
Right? Like you are so much more on fire for your mission when kids are happy and fed, wife's happy. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
I'm on fire.
Yep.
Let's go slay some dragons.
Yeah.
So, just being able to tell the world that, and also just preach about the goodness of a solid day's work with one's hands.
Yeah.
That's what I'm passionate about telling here.
Yeah. Yeah. Who doesn't walk into the shop and go, man, I like it here. A salesman came in trying to sell me temp workers from his agency. I don't know, that sounds weird, but that's what he was doing. And he was like, I can see why you don't have a problem with retention. Great culture, and it's clean and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, it's because it's ordered right from the inside out that he's able to walk in and just go, man, I like this, and who wants to be here for 8 hours a day too if you don't have your priorities straight? Because then the culture sucks.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. That's critical.
Okay. Where are you going with all this? What's the plan as far as Erber Auto, the services you provide? Are you going to stay right where you're at? Or are you going to grow it?
There's a couple services we still want to add. Having gotten the whole building, we have space to do it now. Is this important to be in my pocket?
No.
Okay. It's stuck back. Okay. Anyway, there's a couple services we'd like to add, but mostly we want to stay focused on domestic and Asian vehicles and doing general maintenance and repair. I think the steps forward from here will be as I have the right guys for it, building other locations and building businesses around them. I think when it comes down to it, a business is nothing except the sum of its people. That's all you have. And if you don't have any workers, you don't have a business. You have a nice building, and so finding those culture fits that have their lives ordered, where family is first, and God is first and family, and like you were talking about those rings, building out from there. And then what we're doing here as mechanics is to pour out to customers and to pour in toward our family and the community. That's very difficult to find, but I think it makes all the difference. And so if I don't have those guys coming out my ears, I'm not starting another spot.
Yeah.
I maybe could, but that would just be launching me into another trap of slavery to another business, and that's not where I want to go.
Yeah.
So my goal is to build these guys, and then as we have those fits, move a few of them out and start another location. So having the ability to put 11 bays in here gives us the ability to sacrifice a few guys to that as we grow over the years. So yeah, that's where I think this is
It's really
going.
fun to listen to that, because what you're describing is a very generational understanding of a business.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, we just talk about business as quarters. It's a very American thing. Like, Q4 was great. It's like, well, okay, I didn't even talk about my own Q4. I don't like. It's just you got to piece things up. I get it. You got to pace. You got to do some analysis. Yeah. But in general, you become such a good leader and business owner and family man when you're only thinking about, well, what are my kids going to be like for their spouse?
Mm-hmm.
Let me work on that.
Yeah.
Let me work on my business as far as turning these guys into great family men.
Yeah.
And having a career.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that's really fun about business is seeing each of the guys and their skill set and going, what are they going to be best at, and how can I push them farther in that direction? And how can I get them to replace me? Because there's stuff that I am really bad at, but one thing I'm good at is knowing who people are and what they're good at, and then telling them to do it.
Yeah.
Which sounds lazy, but someone's got to do that.
Yeah.
So seeing these guys and their skills and being able to push them in specific directions is really fun. It's very rewarding.
And it's a humbler thing than you're giving it credit for, right? A proud man would do it himself and be like, I'll show you how it's done, right?
Sure.
So you have to be able to swallow that pride and give it away. It's free trust, right? You're giving away free trust the way Christ gave you something free. And that gift is something that you could suffer for, right?
Yeah.
You've given a guy a project and he's botched it and cost you tons of money, right? That's the risk of being a business owner.
Well, it is, but I just tell him, I had one guy he was young, he was crushing it, and made a pretty big whoops, but also thought he should have been earning more than he was making. And when that happened, I was like, well, we get to buy the customer a new engine. And that is why you're paid what you're paid.
Yeah.
And the fewer times you do this, that will become your income,
Yes.
So yeah, that happens, but it's fun.
Good lesson.
Yeah.
Good lesson for him. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that guy, right? So we got a young generation who says, I see it all the time on TikTok. Why would I join the trades? They're not going to treat me well. They're not gonna help me learn. It's too harsh.
Yeah.
Why would I give it my time?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always jokingly say, you shouldn't. You should definitely go where it's better for you. But talk to those people that are trying to figure out, like, why should I do a hard trade?
Oh, yeah. Well, everything is hard.
Yes.
Life is hard. You hear people in the trades say, oh, it's so hard on my body. Everything is hard on your body. Life is hard on your body. If you're sitting at a desk, that's hard on your body. And if you're not going to let the desk job destroy you, then you have to be working out at a gym, and that's hard on your body. But it's good for you. Life is just hard. And so I think they just need to get over it and get out and realize it's not coming to them without them going after it. And you really get to pick your struggles. And so if you're in college, struggling, working your butt off, getting after your classes, your lessons, if you're in music or like I was, or whatever the case is, well, then afterwards it's going to be easier. You see these professional pianists up there just tearing it up, and it looks like they're sleeping. They're just, it doesn't look like they're sleeping, but you know what I mean. It's easy. And so that didn't happen because they weren't struggling before. It wasn't just a natural thing for them. Mm-hmm. They were going after it the whole time. And so you really get to pick your struggles. And if you don't pick struggles, then they'll pick you. What's harder than working in the trades? Making a minimum wage job, because you didn't struggle earlier, and now that's all you can get.
Yep.
And so wherever you're at, if you're in the minimum wage job, look at, this is a hard shift to make from an employee standpoint, until I think once you've been in the business world, it's like, oh, I get it. But employers want to see their employees adding value all the time. And so as an employee, you hear that and you think, okay, so flip more burgers, right? And it's like, okay, to a point, that's great. But also, what if you're the guy who says, hey, our process is messed up. This is way more efficient if we switch this and this. And the business owner looks at it and goes, holy cow, you're manager,
Yep.
And so for those people that are, I don't want to go into the trades, it's too hard, or I don't get paid enough, or this economy sucks, all that kind of stuff that you hear in the reels. It's in your own power to maximize your potential. And people have different potentials. And that's just the fact. Life is not fair in that sense. But if you get out there and take ownership of your work and think forward and lean into your job, there's no way that does not go noticed. And so wherever you are, it's going to be hard, and be a step ahead of that so that you're choosing your battles rather than them choosing you.
Love it. There you have it. Take responsibility.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this with us.
Yeah, it's fun. I hope it's helpful.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah. Have a good one.